Welcome to the Good Mood Show. I'm your host, Matt O'Neill. Be sure to hit subscribe so that you get a good mood every single week. Today, we are talking with firewalking master, Dave Albin. He is the #1 firewalk instructor in America. And you've heard me right. He helps people walk over 1,000-degree hot coals with his company, Firewalk Productions. Dave worked for Tony Robbins for almost two decades as his firewalk captain. And he's successfully helped more than 500,000 people overcome their fears and walk over these burning hot coals without getting burned. How? Well, that's what you're going to learn from the man himself. And Dave has a free gift for you. There's a 5-minute documentary film about his life. It's incredible. If you're already a subscriber to the Good Mood Show, you'll receive that film this week. And if not, no worries. You can download that film instantly at goodmoodshow.com just by signing up for our newsletter, or reach out to me on the contact page and I'll send it over to you. And if you stay to the end of the episode, Dave is going to offer a link for a substantial discount if you yourself are interested in firewalking or becoming an instructor who can help people overcome their fears walking over fire. So in our life, we may not actually be faced with burning hot coals to traverse, but we're going to encounter challenges that look really daunting. In this episode, you're going to learn the exact methods for embodying confidence in the face of fear that will help you get to the other side of the challenges that life will present you. And I'm very excited to introduce our guest, Dave Albin. Dave, welcome to the Good Mood Show.
Thanks, Matt. I am so juiced to be here, man. What a great show you've got going. It's awesome.
Man, this is so fascinating to me. It's actually a bucket list item for me to go and walk over hot coals. I had a ticket to a UPW right when the pandemic hit.
Oh, man.
And I wanted to go and do the firewalk. The whole point for me going was to face the fear and grow that state to be able to walk over those hot coals. And I was just really excited to do it. And I ended up taking the UPW online instead of in person. So we broke boards with our hands, their fists, which was still powerful, but it wasn't walking over fire.
Nope.
Nope. So I wanted you in your documentary, you take us back to the first time you walked over these burning hot coals. Man, were you scared?
You betcha. Yeah, I was probably, in the top 10 of people, top 10% of people that were frightened. In fact, I wasn't going to do it, Matt. I would just, no, I'm like, no, this is a hard no for me. It made no sense. Why would you do that? And so I resisted it from the very beginning. Now, to set the stage for that, though, I knew going into the event that there was going to be a firewalk, but I made a decision early on. No, but I'm not going to do the firewalk. We'll leave that for the crazy people. I'll watch it, but I'm not going to do it myself. So when you get to a Tony Robbins event for UPW, Tony takes the stage at like 2:00 in the afternoon. And the next thing you know, it's after midnight. So you've been in a room with him for 10 hours, and he's basically prepping you for the firewalk. And so there's a moment right after midnight, Tony goes, "Take your shoes off." And I remember thinking, oh no, pal, you're not tricking me into this. I'm not doing it. Well, here's the challenge. I'm in a room with 3,500 people. Guess what they're doing? They're taking their shoes off. So if I don't take my shoes off, they're all going to know that I'm a coward. So we can't have that. So I'll just fake it. I'll just take them off and I'll just go hide in the back. Well, as Tony's got you going outside into this huge parking lot to do the firewalk, he gets everybody chanting, right? So they're clapping and they're going, yes, yes, yes. And you've got 3,500 people chanting. And so, he's setting the ambiance, right? So it's getting pretty intense. And then when you go outside, actually into this large parking lot where he's going to facilitate the firewalk, he's got African drummers. Right. So now it's dun, 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 dun. And it's unlike anything you could ever imagine. I mean, it is so intense. So how they set this up, especially with like 3,500 people, they start a fire early in the day, probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They started the fire and they just keep adding wood to this giant fire. So they build a pit's probably 30 feet long, wide, probably 60, 70 feet long. And they add several cords of wood to this thing all day. So it burns and it burns and it burns and it renders. So after midnight, it renders this giant, beautiful pile of coals. They're the most prettiest things you ever saw in your life. And so what they do, Matt, is they load those coals in a wheelbarrow. And then they take a wheelbarrow and they put the wheelbarrow in between two fire lanes. That fire lane that you walk on is about 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. And so they take a flathead shovel and they just sprinkle those coals on top of that grass, and that's what you walk on. Well, when I get out there, I'm not doing it. So my strategy was, I'm just going to go hide in the back. No one's going to know. Well, Tony knows what a powerful experience this is. He chose this experience specifically on day one of his 4-day event because he knows it's one of the most paradigm shift, powerful experiences any human will ever go through, literally. So he wants to make sure everybody participates and gets through that. So what he does is he knows all the cowards like me are going to hide in the back. And so what's he do? He trains people to go find you. And so that's what happened. I'm hiding in the back. I got 3,500 people in front of me. They're chanting, the drums are going. And all of a sudden, here comes this guy. And he makes eye contact with me. So Tony must train them. Listen, when you make eye contact with these people, don't take your eyes off of them. And so he's made eye contact and he's coming at me and he's coming at me. He probably gets 20 feet from me. And he kind of looks at me like there's something wrong, right? He can kind of tell. And he looks at me kind of fun and he goes, "Are you okay?" And when we're not okay, what do we say? I'm fine. Okay. Yeah. "Oh, I'm good, man. Yeah, all good here, brother. You can be on your way, pal. Leave me alone." And he says, "Oh, good. Glad to hear that." He says, "So are you going to walk tonight?" And I'm like, "Did you not get the memo?" I'm like, "Absolutely not. I'm not walking tonight." And he goes, "Hey, man, that's cool." He goes, "Listen, we don't want you to do anything you don't want to do." And I thought, wow, okay, I like this guy. He's going to get me out of here. And then here's what happened. Here's a stranger. I don't know who this guy is to this day. I really wish I did, because I wouldn't be here on your podcast, man, if I hadn't, right? My whole life changed because of this guy asked me a question. One stranger, again, changed my life forever. And the question was, wouldn't you at least like to watch? And I thought for a second, yeah, sure, that'd be funny. That's entertaining. Let's go watch these people burn their feet off. Well, I've got 3,500 people standing in front of me. I can't see anything but a wall of people. And he says, "Well, look, just get in line and eventually you'll get up there."
Man, he totally roped you in.
Oh, yeah, he did. Oh, he got me. He totally did. And in his defense, he was telling the truth, because I'm 100 yards away. I can't see anything except a sea of people. So I fell for it. I got in line. I'm kind of walking along. And all of a sudden, this guy comes up to me and he whispers in my ear. And he said, "He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go." And pew, this guy just disappeared into the night. And I'm like, what was that? Where did that guy come from? And so now I'm mesmerized, right? Your brain is looking for answers. It's trying to figure stuff out. I mean, it's so intense, and the people chanting and the drums, and all of a sudden I get to a point, Matt, where I can't see in front of me, but I can see at an angle. And guess what? They're doing it. Every race, creed, and color person is firewalking. And my brain is going, what in the hell are they doing? Why are they doing this? Metaphorically, what's going on here? And I'm just watching and I'm just mesmerized. It's like, it's a trance. You're just so enthralled in watching these people do this. You can't take your eyes off it. And I'm watching and I'm watching and I'm watching. And the next thing I know, guess what? Guess where I am?
The front of the line.
I'm at the front of the line. And so now it's fight or flight, because I'm looking down at this 3-foot, piece of grass that's 18 feet long, and the coals are on top of them and they're glowing bright red. The wheelbarrow's there. You can feel the heat coming off, and I am staring into the abyss. I literally thought my heart was going to bounce out of my chest. I am out of my mind with fear. And so there's a trainer standing there, and all of a sudden the trainer goes, "Eyes up." Like, you idiot. Were you not in the room for 10 hours with Tony? Guess what he teaches you? Keep your eyes up. Don't stare at what you fear. Look to the celebration end of this. Keep your eyes focused on that. And so all of a sudden the trainer goes, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. And so he could tell I was leaving a lot on the table. I was not in a peak state. And he said, stronger. And so now I'm like irritated, right? So I threw my hands in the air and I screamed at the top of my lungs, yes. And he goes, go, go, go. Pooh, I took off. Well, at the end of the lane, Tony puts two people and they lock arms and they stop you. And they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. And so I'm wiping my feet and I start to celebrate. And all of a sudden I go, oh my gosh, I've burnt myself really, really bad. And I lift up my right foot and I look at it. It's dirty, but there's no burns. Oh, it's my other foot. I can feel it. It's burnt. I look at it. I'm having ghost pains. It's dirty, but there's no burns. And so now I'm looking back and I'm like, what just happened? I just walked on coals that were 1,000 degrees and I didn't burn myself. And I didn't have a clue how I did it, right? Ever done something really cool? And you don't even know how you did it, but you're like, yep, that was this guy right here. That was me.
Yes,
well, that's where
that.
Right? I mean, that's where I am at that point. And so totally disbelief. One of the most exhilarating moments of my life, along with 3,500 people that are all feeling the same exhilaration, right?
And so it's so many lessons for life. You know,
oh gosh, yeah.
The one that I got from you was eyes up.
Eyes up.
Stop looking directly at the danger, because all that's doing is mesmerizing you and how bad it's going to hurt and creating more and more fear and more anxiety. And so because at that point, fear is exhilaration without the breath. Right? To be fearful, you got to hold your breath for the most part, right? Because when you get scared, what do? What do? We go, oh, but then we don't breathe. And so Tony teaches you to breathe. Get your lungs full of oxygen, get your brain thinking. And if you watch, I think you mentioned the Oprah in the pre-call we were talking. If you go Google Oprah's Firewalk, you'll see her. She's losing it, man. And she's not breathing. But Tony comes back to her and he says, Oprah, what's the worst that can happen here? Burn your feet off and die? Come on. I'm going to make sure you don't get hurt. So there I am. One of the most exhilarating moments of my entire life. I felt like I could accomplish anything. I mean, it is such a cool feeling. Well, but here's where it gets really interesting. This is what got me, was the next day. So UPW is 4 days. That's day one. That night we do the firewalk. We're coming in for day two. And we're standing in the foyer. And we're getting ready to go into the venue. And I'm standing there with 3,500 people who all did something the night before that's totally not believable. And I'd never seen anything like it. Our self-worth, our self-confidence, and our self-belief about ourselves had been elevated to a whole new level. So we were vibrating together, you know, with this instant camaraderie. And I'm seeing people connect, and they're laughing, they're crying, they're hugging, they're telling their story. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is spectacular. And I've never been in a group like that ever, other than a Tony Robbins seminar the next day after a firewalk. It happens every single time. So now I'm just totally, you know, like, firewalking, is that what happened? Is that why we're like this? And the answer was absolutely. And that's when I found out, I got to know one of Tony's trainers. And he said, hey, you see all these people back here that have these special shirts on? He goes, those are all volunteers. They're people just like you who came to an event, who came back to serve. So if you really like that part, when you get home, call Robbins Research. They'll send you an application, fill it out, send it back. And if they like what they see and hear from you, you might get selected to come volunteer. He goes, there's no guarantees, but you know, we always miss the shots we don't take. And so I did that. After the event, I called Robbins. They sent me the application. I filled it out. It was like 4 pages long, sent it back. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, guess what? I get in the mail. Congratulations, Dave Albin. You've been selected to crew the Anthony Robbins UPW in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Well, the next thing I know, there I am. I'm at a Tony Robbins event. And what led up to Tony Robbins is, to backtrack a little bit here. At a time in my life, I was grossly addicted to drugs and alcohol. And that my drinking started when I was 11 years old. I was adopted at 5. And when my adoptive parents adopted me, they stopped drinking. But at the age of 11, they started drinking again. And on the first day of summer in 1964, they set me down and said, David, we need to tell you something. And I'm like, okay, what's that? What's going on? They said, we're not your parents. What do you mean you're not my parents?
Ooh, man,
right?
that'll shift your paradigm.
Oh man, I literally, Matt, that was it. That was the day my life took a hard turn. And so I'm trying to process that at 11 years old. You're not my parents. They're really my aunt and uncle. My biological mother put me up for adoption, and her sister and her brother-in-law at that time adopted me. Well, shortly after that happened, they both started drinking. And this wonderful, beautiful life that I had got pretty crappy really quickly. And so they left one day. And back in those days, you'd leave your kid home at 11 years old, because you just call the neighbor across the street and say, hey, Joanne, we're leaving David. Bob and I are going shopping. If he needs anything, can he just come over and knock on your door? Yeah, of course. That's the way you did things in the 60s.
Right. Yeah, of
literally,
course.
right? You didn't lock your doors. I mean, it was just a whole different way of life.
Right. I grew up like that. We never locked our door.
Right.
My wife and I talk about this too. She, as a third grader, she would come home and just make herself a snack. She would walk home from school by herself as a third grade student, get home, feed herself, turn on the TV by herself, and she just was self-sufficient. It doesn't sound like feasible or good parenting today, but at the time that was totally acceptable and absolutely normal.
And it worked.
Yeah.
Because what you didn't want to do is be inside. If you were inside, you were being punished.
Yeah, you needed to get outside.
You need to go outside.
Yeah, get on your bike.
Get on your bike.
Go find some friends.
Go find friends. Go play red light, green light. Get on your skateboard. Ride your bicycle.
No video games. There were no computers.
Nothing.
There was nothing to do inside. So we were all outside having fun together.
Other than homework.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where you stayed inside. So, again, you didn't want to be inside. So when they left, I knew where the booze was. Now, I don't want to say they were hiding it, but it was in a cabinet. And I'm like, what is this thing? Why is everything changing? Every time they drink that stuff, something bad starts happening. So I was investigating. I was curious. I wanted to know. So I went and I grabbed it and I put it on the table, and it was brandy. And I took a normal, oh God, gross. Oh God. Yeah. So I took a coffee cup, right? I filled it up about halfway and I just drank it.
Oh, all in one go. Nasty.
One go.
Yeah.
And you know what? I never had a chance.
Yeah.
I was done. I was an alcoholic right on the spot, because I started thinking alcoholically right there. I wanted to drink again. I was willing to steal it. I was willing to hide it. And so my career, if you will, as an alcoholic started at 11, and it got worse and worse and worse. Right?
I saw from the documentary film that you ended up getting into harder drugs, marijuana, and then cocaine and heroin, and then that you ended up going to AA, and that really AA saved your life. And I am a huge fan of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh,
and
thank you.
The 12 steps, I think, is a godsend. In fact, I know God is such a central piece of that whole organization.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you about this. Like, what is it about this surrendering everything to a higher power that really helps get you back on your feet with AA?
Well, the first thing you're introduced to is the camaraderie. You're in a room. I happened to go to a AA meeting that was all men, and these guys, they knew. I mean, I put a gun in my mouth that morning. When I woke up on June 8th of 1988, I was grossly addicted to heroin, cocaine, alcohol, cigarettes. I mean, I was a 5-car collision, a train wreck, and a plane crash all rolled into one. So I had a moment of compassion, and rather than blow my brains out, because I was married to a woman who had 3 kids, they were my stepkids. I went, you can't do that, man. They don't deserve that. I was living in the basement. They were all living upstairs. And I just remember thinking, man, you can't do that. That's wrong. And so I didn't. And the next thought I had is, we'll call AA. Well, that's what's interesting about that, Matt, is I had no idea what AA was. I knew nothing about AA, and yet there's that thought. I didn't know anybody was in AA. I'd never heard of it, AA, and yet there I am calling AA. So they sent a man to come pick me up, and I went to my first meetings that day. I went to 4 meetings. I went to
I got a question. What do you think was it that implanted that thought, call AA, in your mind?
It's a divine intervention. It has to be, because I didn't have any references. None. Again, I'd never been to a meeting. I didn't know what it was. So I have no idea.
I love that, man. Isn't it awesome when we get that blessing? It just shows you the power of God, and that even in our darkest times, there's always that love there.
And so there I was. I'm in an AA meeting, and I went to 4 meetings that day. I went to a 12:30, a 4:30, a 6:30, and an 8:30. And so those men took a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they signed it, and they wrote their telephone number. And they said, and at the bottom it said, before you take that first drink, call one of us. They handed me the book. And they also took a Living Sober book and did the same thing. So I had 2 books when I went home that night. Well, the next morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings, and it's John from AA. He's like, hey, Dave, good morning. It's John from AA. And I'm like, yeah, John. He goes, how you feeling? I said, how the hell do you think I'm feeling? I want to kill something. And I may start with you. Right? I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm a mess. You know, alcohol, drugs at the same time, trying to get sober. Yeah. I mean, I need a drink. I'm starting to shake. Man, I'm shaking, right? It's delirium tremors. I probably should have went to rehab. But, you know, they said, well, you know, eat some dark chocolate and drink fresh squeezed orange juice. That'll help balance your blood sugar. And I did that. So anyway, John comes and picks me up, takes me to another meeting. Then I got, you know, I went in the 3rd day. And the next thing I know, I got a week. Next thing I know, I got a month. And then they gave me a little chip, gave me a round trip that said, you know, 30 days of sobriety. Then I got one at 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, 9 months. And then I got the 1-year chip.
How did it feel to get the chip?
It's amazing. It's, you know, it's such a little thing, yet it's so critical. My sponsor said, put it in your hand. I said, okay, I put it in my hand. He goes, now squeeze it until the pain, you can't do it anymore. He goes, that's a reminder, my friend, because that's what's waiting for you if you go back out there, if you go back out and start drinking again. Because they knew that if I didn't stay, that it would probably kill me, that I wouldn't make it back. So he just said, and I did that. I would squeeze it. I go, oh, damn, that does hurt. And I would do that and keep you familiar with the pain.
So my stepdad successfully recovered from alcoholism with AA and continued to go to meetings until the end of his life. And it saved his life, man. Yeah. And he made all this redemption. He was able to right a lot of things that hadn't gone right during his time. And I asked him about what was so powerful about it. And it's the same thing you described. It's just unconditional love. Like, the people in that meeting love you unconditionally, regardless of what you've done. They totally get you. They totally accept you, and they're there for you. Like John calling you at 8 a.m. Like, who does that, man? Who cares about you that much that they're waking up with you on their mind at 8 a.m. to make sure that you're okay? I mean, it's beautiful. It's a total stranger.
And they know, man, they knew I was in bad shape. They knew I put a pistol in my mouth twice that morning. So, you know, they knew, hey, we got to watch this kid. And you're absolutely right. The camaraderie, the connection, you know, when someone in AA looks at you and goes, hey man, I know how you feel. I went through that exact thing. You know, they're congruent. They're telling you the truth. So that's magical in and of itself. And of course, and then once we get into the maintenance steps, then it's really just, you know, maintaining your spiritual conditioning, because all we really have is a daily reprieve based on the maintenance of that spiritual conditioning. And so you also get, you know, keep your side of the street clean. And then, you know, what I love about AA is in the middle there, it's called the preamble. And the preamble says, when anyone anywhere reaches out, I want the hand of AA to be there. And for that, I'm responsible. Well, I took that to heart. Because what happened is, when I got sober, I had insomnia. So I was up late at night all the time. My sleep patterns were all over the place. And I'm up late one night, and guess what I watch? An infomercial.
An infomercial of Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins, Gunthy Ranker, there he is, a young Tony Robbins selling his personal power program.
Which is awesome, by the way. Personal Power and Personal Power 2 were two of the first programs that I ever listened to of anybody.
Right.
And it was like, I had it on cassette tapes.
Those little white things, right?
Yeah, remember those? Yeah. Like, those are real. They actually existed.
Your audience may not even know what those are.
Oh, it's crazy, man. And I had like, and it was so big because there were so many of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
So
there was. Yeah. So it was a whole month. It was a whole month of tapes.
You got into Personal Power, which is just an awesome program.
Yeah.
And then how did you get to an event?
Well, that's what happened is that now I've got the personal development industry and AA colliding in my life at the same time. So what happened, how I got to Tony was after, watching the program and going through them and doing what the man taught me to do, I loaned my program to a buddy in AA. 7 years later, right? This was happening in 88, 89. And then in 95, my buddy calls me and says, "Hey, did you know Tony Robbins is coming to town?" And I went, I didn't have a clue. And he goes, "Dude, come on, let's go. You got me into this. You've got to go with me." And I said, "Well, what's the date?" I looked at it and I go, "I'm in. I can go." He goes, "Great. I'll call you back." He was so excited. He calls me back an hour later and he goes, "Done. We pick up the tickets at will call. And here's what they told us to do. Number one, drink a lot of water, hydrate. Keep yourself hydrated during this event. Number two, bring snacks because you're going to spend a lot of time in the room." What an understatement that is, right?
Right.
And he said, bring a good attitude and be ready to play full out. I said, "Dan, how much was the ticket?" He said, $700. I'm like, what? This is in 95.
Right.
Like, what's that worth today? $7,000?
Right.
And I said, "Dan, don't you worry. $700, I'll play full out." So that was it.
That means you have to walk on fire when he asks you to walk on fire.
Well, and here's the thing. And as he's telling me, what's going on at the end, he goes, "Oh, by the way, before I get off the phone, let me tell you, we're going to be doing a firewalk." And I remember going, "Oh, hell no. Oh,
hell no.
This is what the dialogue in my head. I'm going, "Oh, no. No. We're not doing that." And you know what's even more interesting about that, Matt? I was saying no to something. I had no idea what I was saying no to. I don't know what a firewalk was. It just sounded scary, and I'm not doing it because fear is running my life.
Yeah, and this is one of my favorite quotes from you, and it's, "Fear is there to guide you."
Yeah.
Why is fear there to guide you?
Well, because you don't want it to become your jailer, right? Fear is good if it stops you from doing dumb stuff that can get you killed.
Like walking on hot coals.
Yeah, and that didn't sound like anything that sounded, anything good about fear at all. Fear of, so what's the acronym? Is it forget everything and run, or is it face everything and rise? So we decide that, right? AA, I love what AA says. It says false images appearing real. And so, fear is there to guide you. Just don't let it become your jailer. And that's what it had done to me. It was taking everything from me. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do that. I was scared of this. I'm scared of that. I'm allowing it to just overrun my life. And what we've learned, what I've learned is that, the fears we don't overcome become our limits. 100%.
That's what a firewalk experience can do, is that it says, if I can face that fear, which is basically the fear of death, stare it down and confidently conquer that, then I can do the things I'm afraid of in my ordinary life.
Absolutely.
Like have that hard phone call with the person I know I should call, or forgive the person I know I should forgive, but it's hard to do. There you go.
Now you're really getting deep, especially when it gets into forgiveness.
What are some of the other ways that you've seen people transform their life? Like, what are some ordinary challenges that you've seen people be able to face after they firewalked?
Well, like make that hard phone call. One guy right off the top, he's a Google executive and great guy. We've become really good friends. And Wade, we did the firewalk that night, and I change it up a little bit in my firewalks. I add a really interesting dimension to it. I do the board break in addition to the firewalk. So it's a martial arts move. And so what I do, Matt, is I have them write something on front of the board they need to move towards, or they want to move towards to a goal. On the back of the board, I have them write anything on the board that they need to stop doing. And then I invite them to write anybody's name, put anybody's name on that board that they're in conflict with, and that they need to forgive or make restitution and reconciliation with. Well, Wade wrote his dad because he had been in conflict with his dad for years. They had a horrible relationship. The other thing I have them do and invite them to do is to write anybody's name on the board that they've lost. So that turns it into an ancestral type rite of passage. So we break the board, and then I take them out to the firewalk. I have them take a picture of their board so they can see the goal they wrote on the front and what they need to move away from on the back, all the names, the people that they need to reconcile with, and then anybody that they've lost. And that way they can put it on a screensaver on their phone if they want. And then they break the board. We go out to the fire, we do the firewalk. And then when they come back around, I have them take the board and toss it into the fire. Well, when Wade did that, that opened him up to the forgiveness side of life, which gave him the courage to call his dad and reconcile. And then, you know, and I've had this happen on more than one occasion. I had one guy that did this, and he called his father that he was in conflict with. His dad was a bad alcoholic, and he called him, and his father died 2 days later, but he made restitution, and they, you know, they reached a wonderful forgiveness agreement 2 days prior to his father dying. So, you know, when you do stuff like this, you just never know what that's going to open up and really just, you know, set you free. So the truth will set you free, and that's what that does. The firewalk itself, though, can open you up to just about anything. Because like you said, you know, if I can firewalk and I can walk on coals that are 1,000 degrees and not burn myself, what else can I do? And that's why Tony uses it on day one, because he knows the next morning, there you go, you're in the foyer, you're connecting with people at a high level, your frequency's off the chain. And then, you know, then you're walking into the room and he's like, okay, firewalkers, what else can we do here? What else can we accomplish? And that's the beauty. And that's why CEOs and business owners and entrepreneurs, they get it. Some of them do. And that's why they contact me. They're like, hey, Dave, because we're going to custom design the firewalk around their company or whatever's going on, right? If they're launching a new product, or maybe dissension is, you know, causing problems, or sales are down, whatever it is, or maybe sales are really good. They just want to take it to the next level. I tell people all the time, there's 3 times to do a firewalk: when things are good, when things are okay, and when things are bad. You know, pick one, because it's going to help, because the fire doesn't care, right? And right now, Matt, as you well know, you know, it's no stretch to say, look at what happened to companies and people and families. Oh my gosh. As of March of 2020, you know, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, get a vaccine, don't get a vaccine, love Donald Trump, hate Donald Trump, love Joe Biden, hate Joe, I mean, whatever. It's just ripped everybody apart. Well, any CEO that's worth their salt knows that you don't get involved politically, or, you know, typically you keep religion and politics out of your business. Because businesses lately, a couple of them that we all know, made a big mistake. They went out there and took a side. And what did they do? Everybody that didn't agree with that CEO taking a side said, okay, I don't want your product. I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to boycott it. Well, a good CEO would never do that. They're smarter than that. They have to answer to their clients. They have to answer to their shareholders. They have to answer to their company employees, all of that. So again, so if something's going on, they call me and I'll say, all right, Mr. CEO, what's happening? Tell me what's going on. Well, Dave, I got a lot of dissension. I got the mask wearers, not like, you know, and it's ripped us apart.
Well, I think there's just a lot of dissension in the world.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's been so uneasy. People's mindset. That's actually why I launched the Good Mood Show, was because I could feel the collective anxiety of the world as COVID happened, and then people were isolated and separated from each other and fearful of each other. And we haven't rebounded. In fact, it's just been even more crazy So the volatile economy now, we just stopped wearing masks, and now the economy is volatile and no one knows where to feel settled. And so we are really scared as a country. I just took my family camping this weekend, and at the campsite, there were 4 levels to jump off of into the water at the lake. And I've got a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old daughter.
Oh my gosh.
And it's freezing. The water's freezing. And it was cold outside. It was only like 65. You were around this weekend. It was kind of a cold weekend, rainy weekend, right?
Sure was.
And so I put on a life jacket with my girls, and we're teeth are chattering, and we swim out to this platform. And I'm like, all right, we're all going to start on number 1. And so we all jump off number 1, and they did it. And they're like, okay, that was all right. Let's do number 2. So we all did number 2, and that was all right. Then we get to number 3, and this is like, like 18 feet off the water. So it's a good, number 3 is a good jump. And we all did number 3, but number 4 is up on this peak, and it's like kind of topsy-turvy, and you can barely get your feet, and it's over 20 feet high. And my 7-year-old is super brave, very courageous. She just jumps, she's like a freaking warrior, just jumps off this thing, and she hits the water, and she looks up, and my 9-year-old's a little more cautious, and she tells my 9-year-old, she's like, yeah, that hurt a lot. And my 9-year-old's like, I'm not doing it. So I look at my 5-year-old, I said, let's do this. And she's like, only if you do it with me, Dad. I'm like, all right. So we get up on top of the platform, and I do the same thing you said. I'm like, say yes. She's like, yes. I'm like, say yes. I'm like, beat your chest. And she beats her chest. And we jump off this platform, but I forgot to tell her to pencil. And so it was so high that when I hit the water, my feet hurt from just the impact of the water. Right. She hit her little fanny on the water, and we come up, and she's just crying. And I'm like holding her, and we get out of the water, and her whole leg is red.
Yeah.
And then my 9-year-old's like, hell no, Dad. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So I'm like, hey, I don't blame you. I feel awful that I hurt my 5-year-old. I didn't prepare her with the technique well enough, but I was proud of her anyway for overcoming the fear. Well, the next day it's raining, and it's even colder. And so this was Sunday. It's like, I don't know, in the 50s. And my 9-year-old says, Dad, I'm doing number 4 today. And I'm like, let's go. And so we put the life jackets back on, swam out there, and she's like, hey, I want to warm up on number 2. I'm like, all right. So we did number 2, and then she went up for number 4, and she freaking nailed it. And that was like a firewalk for my kids.
Absolutely. 100%.
We get done, and we all celebrated her. And it's like this courage is a muscle. And if they can be courageous in that moment, I feel like they can be courageous when one of their friends is getting picked on, of saying, no, this isn't right. I'm going to stand up and say, that's not the way that we talk to people.
And you know what's the beauty in that is you did so many things right. One, you celebrated when they did it. That's huge. Give yourself the reward immediately when you do something special. And they program themselves, right? So she stepped through that fear and said, I'm going to do it today, Dad. And so that's going to show up again. That'll show up her entire life. And that's the beauty of getting our kids. My daughter was 6 years old the first time she firewalked. My son was 9 years old.
Wow, a 6-year-old firewalk?
6-year-old.
Man, yeah, I've talked to some people who actually have burned their feet.
I mean, can you get a hot spot?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, they got a hot spot, and they told me that I was at a business mastery conference, and somebody was like, yeah, I've firewalked like 5 times, and one of the times I didn't take it serious.
Well, that's interesting.
And I didn't get my state into just rock solid confidence. And they said, because I didn't totally own my state, I was vulnerable to getting hurt, and I got a hot spot on my foot. And so I wanted to ask you about this. One of the things you said was state management is the key to feeling our best. But why is it that if you can get confident, you don't get burned?
Well, I think it could be several things. Number one, your body knows fight or flight. Your body knows how to protect itself. Our bodies know how to release chemicals to do all that and keep us safe. We can hear about a mother where a car flips over and she lifts the car up so she can get her family out, right? So we understand all these superhuman strength. Same thing in firewalking. People ask me all the time, Dave, so how is it people don't get burnt and this and that? And what's the science? And I'm like, you know what? I got to tell you, I don't have a clue. Yeah, I've walked hundreds of thousands of people, but I don't know. I just know that when you're in a peak state like that, you don't get burnt. Now, maybe it has something to do with the energy that's coming out of your feet and your hands. It's like a professional athlete, right? When they get ready to go into the game or a Super Bowl or the World Series, or MMA fighters go into the ring, they're not like, okay, I'm, going to go fight that guy now. And, I'm going to go kick his butt. Let's go. No, they don't. That's not how they prepare. So same thing here.
Yeah, that's super fascinating that our feet could actually radiate energy to protect.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Well, and most people never get a chance to, what's it feel like to play at the level of a professional athlete? What's it feel like to be an Olympian going into the Olympics? Most people on the street never, ever, ever, ever get to get anywhere close to what that feels like, except they do a firewalk. Then they do.
Then they do.
So it's requiring the same intensity. And I know, I've seen it. I've walked many a professional athlete. In fact, a guy that I love, we've become really good friends, is a guy by the name of Adam Carricker. And Adam was a first round draft pick out of Nebraska. And he's a hell of a football player. Well, he hurt his knee and it shut down his career. Well, I firewalked him the first time, and his family, or his wife, I should say, Angie. And Adam's probably, what is he? He's 6'9", and he's a big guy.
Yeah.
And he's fast. He is lightning fast defensive end. And his wife is like, Angie's what? Angie's all of 5'2", 5'3". Yeah. Well, I firewalked him, and I've got pictures of him. And when he's getting ready to do it, his eyes are like this big, right? And then when he got to the celebration aid, you got to see his face. He's like a little kid, man. He is celebrating like crazy. Well, when we came back the following year, he knew I was coming, and he's really good friends with the guy that hired me to come back out, Matt Schaub of M&E Painting, M&E Roofing, and Northern Colorado Jiu-Jitsu. They reached out and said, hey, can we bring our kids? And I said, yeah, absolutely. You better believe it. And they did. And so he has 6 kids. Wow. And the 3-year-old was a little too young for and so, but Eric carried her. Yeah. I mean, Adam carried her. Yeah. But the rest of the kids walked. Yeah. And here's what's really
what a confidence builder for those kids.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The next day, I think we did the event on a Saturday. The next day, their oldest boy was in a baseball tournament, and it was the playoffs. It was the final game. And in the bottom of the 9th inning, their son hit a triple to the wall and won the game. And so they're posting it, right? And I'm going, that's me. That was the firewalk.
It is, because that moment is a moment of fear as well. Yeah, it can be. You can look at it and say, if I strike out here, everyone will be upset with me. And so there can be this performance anxiety. We see like the great golfer miss the putt right on the 18th hole of the 4-day tournament and lose the whole thing on a 5-foot putt that they've made a million times because they couldn't own their state. And they let the moment be bigger than them. And so you're teaching people how to own this state of confidence so that they can step up to the plate, hit a freaking triple off the wall.
State management is everything. Because here's the bottom line. A lot of times when I do my events, Matt, I put a picture of a guy. His name is Eric Meyer. And the picture is a picture of him standing at the top of Mount Everest. And so I'll talk for 20 minutes, a half an hour. And then I'll stop and I'll say, who here can tell me where my buddy Eric is standing? And it's kind of obvious. And they'll go, Mount Everest. I'll go, yep, you're correct. And I want you to know something else about Eric. He has climbed the 7 highest mountains on 7 continents. Put him on a mountain bike, he will tear it up. Put him in a canoe, and you can probably push him down any river in the world. In fact, he had recently finished the gorge in the Grand Canyon at the Colorado River. I'll say, but I do want you to look at him very closely because there's something really physically wrong with him. Who here can tell me what it is? Well, the way he's standing on the peak, he looks like one leg is long than the other, or that he has some deformities in his back. I mean, he just looks cockeyed, if you will. And that's what they'll say. They'll say, you know, oh, he's one leg's longer than the other one. And I'm really, I'm tricking them. And then when they're all done, I go, well, here's what's going on. He's blind.
Mm.
So I don't want to hear it. Your excuses have no validity. If a man can climb the 7 highest mountains on this planet and he can do it blind, then the question is, what can you do? Same thing with a firewall.
Anything,
Once we get you across the fire,
anything.
once we get you across that fire, what else can you do? Because why don't people get what they want in life, Matt? It's pretty simple. There's a story we tell ourselves why we can't have it. And normally it's all false. None of it's true. I'm too young. I'm too old. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the education. I don't have the resources, blah, blah, blah. Tell that to Eric. What do you think he thinks about every day as he gets ready to climb the 7 highest mountains on earth?
I'm too young. I'm too old. I don't have enough money, right?
Don't have the
I don't
time.
have enough education. I'm not smart enough.
I hate the one where people say, I don't have time.
I don't
That's
have
a lie.
time. I don't have time. Yeah, I don't have time. I don't have time to worry about my health. I've got too many other priorities. You should see, if only you saw my life, right? Then you would know that I can't possibly do this. We call that the C word at our house. Can't.
Okay.
Can't.
Yeah, right.
Can't is the only bad word. And it's I remember one time my daughter said to her Aunt Annie, when Annie said can't, she's like, Annie, you just said the C word. And Annie was like, what? I did not. Like,
Wow.
they're like, yeah, you did. So my kids will call you out on saying can't.
I love that.
And
That's
these
beautiful.
and these limitations, I mean, that's what this whole show is about. So I just want to bring this to a practical everyday use. When I'm feeling fear and I don't want to do something that I know I should do, how do I change my state in that moment to confidence?
Get up and move and breathe.
Get up and move and breathe.
Shake your body out. Move your body. Because if you start moving your body like a professional athlete and you start breathing and you take a lot of oxygen deep into your lungs, that interrupts the pattern. And if you go to any Tony Robbins seminar, or you go to any of some of the best motivational speakers out there, they're all going to tell, most of them are going to tell you the same thing. You've got to interrupt the pattern. Patterns are everything.
Yeah. Make your move.
Make your move. Make your move. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's why I was having my daughters beat their chest, literally beat their chest and say yes, because that was, and you know, you look at an athlete that just scored a touchdown, look at his celebration.
Yeah.
Right. He just made a big play. Look at the way they celebrate. That is the move. That is the move that gives us confidence. So when we're feeling fearful, stand up, embody a powerful state, make a move like a celebration, like you would if you just got a first down or just got the big interception. And then all of a sudden you can charge forward confidently in the face of 1,000-degree hot coals.
That's absolutely correct.
Man, Dave, this has been incredible. Guys, if you want to watch his documentary film, just go to goodmoodshow.com and sign up for our newsletter or reach out on the contact page. We'll be sure we send it to you. And Dave, there's people listening that are going to want to get in touch with you, become a firewalk instructor, or just have a firewalk experience. How would they get in touch with you?
Real simple. Just go to our website. It's firewalkadventures.com, all one word. And then anybody that's got any interest in the academy, when you get to our website in the top left-hand corner, I think it says Academy. You can click on that and then you can get all the information there. And then if you're serious and you want to come to the academy and do this, and we'll teach you all of this stuff. It's about a week long up here in the Appalachian Mountains. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's stunning, very majestic. It's a beautiful place to do the training. If you use code for watching your show, Matt, 6828, we'll give you a substantial discount. So we only take on 10 people per event. And the reason for that is we keep it very intimate. And that way everybody gets one-on-one training with me and my team.
Man, thank you so much for bringing this and for that offer to our audience. But just being in your presence, I feel more confident that I can face today's challenges with that firewalk ability. Yeah. So, man, Dave, thank you so much, man.
My pleasure to be here, Matt. Thanks again. I really appreciate it, man.